to the online video resources for head and neck by numbers. My name is Felicia Sigurd, and I am a dental hygienist and the author of Head and Neck by Numbers. I will also be your guide through the names, locations, and relationships outlined in the text. So let's start with how we use the text. It is very important that you do not write the names on the pictures. The whole point is that you're going to write the number that associates with the other page. So then you can flip it around with that coil binding and just look at the image and quiz yourself. So we'll go through, if you're looking at figure 1, the way it would work is I would say number 1 is superior, and on the screen we'll flash the image of what you need to color. Now, these videos were made to be short, so I'm not going to just stand here while you color, so feel free to pause me, color, and then start again. Now, we have to get something straight. I am not giving you the grade for this class. So if you find that there's a discrepancy between my book and what your teacher tells you, go with your teacher, okay? But other than that, I think that your teacher and I are both helping you to be a better student and learn anatomy in fun and interesting and hopefully helpful ways. Figure 16 is the cranial nerves. For each nerve, there are 3 blanks. The first blank represents the foramen in which the nerve exits the skull. The second blank talks about the structure or the sense that is innervated by that nerve. And the third is whether the nerve is sensory, motor, or both. There are 2 excellent mnemonics to help you remember some of the things about the cranial nerves. The first is to help you remember the order of the nerves. It goes like this. O-O-O, to touch and feel, very good vegetables, ah, heaven. If you take each of the letters, O-O-O, to touch, O-O-O-T-T, it will spell out each of the names. O for ophthalmic, O for optic, O for oculomotor, etc. The other mnemonic is about sensory, motor, or both, because you need to know whether these nerves are just receiving information, like a sensory nerve, if they're actually commanding a muscle to do something, that would be motor, or if they can do both. So the mnemonic goes like this. Some say money matters, but my brother says big brains matter more. The S represents sensory, the M represents motor, and a B represents both. If you say the sentence in order, it aligns with the 12 cranial nerves. Number 1 is the olfactory nerve. It exits the skull through the cribriform plate. It innervates your sense of smell, and it is a sensory nerve. Number 2 is the optic nerve. It exits the skull through the optic canal. It innervates vision, and it is a sensory nerve. But let's be honest, it's really tricky to keep all those O's separate. So I learned a great trick from one of my students. They said, when you're talking about cranial nerve number 1, the olfactory nerve, remember that you have 1 nose. And when you're talking about cranial nerve number 2, remember that you have 2 eyes. Number 3 is the oculomotor nerve. It exits the skull through the superior orbital fissure. It innervates eye movement, and it is a motor nerve. Number 4 is another one of those eye movement nerves. It is the trochlear nerve. It exits the skull through the superior orbital fissure. It innervates eye movement, and it is a motor nerve. Number 5 is the trigeminal nerve. Now this nerve is so complicated that it gets 3 figures all to itself. So some basics. It exits the skull in 3 places. We've heard this before, standing room only, right? Superior orbital fissure, foramen rotundum, and foramen ovale. Standing room only. Those are the 3 places where it exits the skull. For the innervations, I am going to refer you to figure 17, figure 18, and figure 19 to get all of the details. And because it does motor and sensory, it is a both nerve. Number 6 is the abducens nerve. It exits the skull through the superior orbital fissure. It innervates eye movement along with cranial nerves 3 and 4, and it is a motor nerve. Number 7 is the facial nerve. It exits the skull through the internal acoustic meatus. It innervates facial expression, the lacrimal gland, and taste. It therefore is a both nerve. Number 8 is the vestibulocochlear nerve. It exits the skull through the internal acoustic meatus. It innervates hearing and balance, so if you're feeling a little dizzy, thank your vestibulocochlear nerve. And it is a sensory nerve. Number 9 is the glossopharyngeal nerve. It exits the skull through the jugular foramen. It innervates the neck muscles, the parotid gland, and taste. So it is therefore a both sensory and motor nerve. Number 10 is the vagus nerve, and it's not spelled like Las Vegas. Vagus, V-A-G-U-S. It exits the skull through the jugular foramen. It innervates the soft palate, the pharynx, the larynx, the skin of the ear, and taste. It is a sensory and motor nerve, so we classify it as both. Now there are 3 nerves that innervate taste. That'd be number 7, the facial nerve, number 9, the glossopharyngeal, and number 10, the vagus nerve. All 3 contribute to taste. Number 11 is the accessory nerve. It has 2 roots, so it exits the skull from 2 places. The cranial root exits through the jugular foramen. The spinal root exits next to the spine through foramen magnum. It innervates the trapezius and the sternocleidomastoid muscles, and therefore it is a motor nerve. Number 12 is the hypoglossal nerve. It exits the skull through the hypoglossal canal. It innervates tongue movement. My anatomy teacher used to tell us it was the makeout nerve. And it is a motor nerve.